the rifle barrel pressed cold against Kestrel's temple as 3 men surrounded her wagon on the dusty trail outside Willow Creek. Her hands trembled on the reins. But not from fear, from rage that burned hotter than the Texas sun overhead. "Pretty little widow thinks she can just roll through our territory," sneered the leader, his tobacco-stained teeth gleaming. "Toll's $50 or we take it in trade." Kestrel's jaw clenched. A small pouch of coins hidden beneath her seat contained everything, her late husband's final gift and her only hope of reaching California. "I have nothing for scoundrels like you." The man's laugh turned ugly. "Then we'll be taking that fine wagon," and a shadow fell across them all. The bandit's head snapped up, and Kestrel felt her breath catch. Astride a massive paint horse sat the largest man she'd ever seen easily, 7 feet tall with copper. Skin marked by ritual scars and long black hair braided with eagle feathers. His dark eyes held the weight of storms. "Ayana tells me her wagon wheel broke near the old oak," he said in perfect English, his voice deep as thunder. The Comanche warrior's gaze never left the bandits, but Kestrel knew he spoke to her. "Needs help." The leader of the bandits paled. "Now see here, Engine." The giant's hand moved faster than striking lightning. His tomahawk buried itself in the tree beside the bandit's head, close enough to shave whiskers. "My name is Nalnish. You will use it or you will leave. Choose quickly." All 3 men scrambled for their horses, disappearing in a cloud of dust down the trail. Nalnish dismounted with fluid grace despite his size, approaching Kestrel's wagon with hands raised peacefully. "You are hurt." His eyes searched her face with surprising gentleness. Kestrel's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd heard terrible stories about Comanche warriors, but this man had just saved her life. I'm fine, thank you," he nodded, then examined her wagon wheel with practiced hands. "The axle is cracked. You cannot travel far." His dark gaze met hers again. "My village is near. You will be safe there while repairs are made." Every instinct screamed danger, but what choice did she have? The nearest town lay 50 miles behind her, and she'd barely escaped with her life from there. The good people of Willow Creek had made their feelings about a cursed widow crystal clear. "Why would you help me?" she asked. Something shifted in his expression, loneliness, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. "Because I know what it means to have nowhere to go." As if to underscore his words, a gunshot echoed from the direction of town. Smoke rose on the horizon. Kestrel's blood ran cold. They'd found her trail. "Decide now," Nalnish said, swinging onto his horse and extending one massive hand toward her. "Come with me, or face what follows alone." Behind them, hoofbeats thundered closer. Kestrel looked into the Comanche giant's eyes and saw not savagery, but honor. She grasped his hand. The Comanche village materialized from the prairie like something from a dream. Hide lodges dotted the landscape in careful patterns, smoke rising from cook fires where women prepared the evening meal. Children's laughter carried on the wind, and horses grazed peacefully in the distance. Kestrel had expected stares and hostility, but the people merely nodded respectfully to Nalnish as he helped her down from his horse. An elderly woman with silver-streaked braids approached, speaking rapidly in Comanche. "Ayana says you look like a coyote who lost her den," Nalnish translated, and the old woman smiled warmly at Kestrel. "She offers you shelter in her lodge tonight." "I don't understand," Kestrel said. "Why is everyone being so kind to a stranger?" Nalnish was quiet for a long moment, staring across the camp toward the setting sun. "Because we know what it means to be hunted, to be called savage for wanting only to live in peace." That evening, as Kestrel sat beside Ayana's fire eating buffalo stew, she learned fragments of Nalnish's story. Born to a Comanche mother and captured Mexican father, he'd grown to enormous size, but never quite belonged in either world. The tribal elders respected his strength and wisdom, but no father would offer his daughter to a man who towered over other warriors like a giant. "Lonely hearts recognize each other," Ayana said in careful English, watching Kestrel's face. "You both carry same shadow." Kestrel touched the simple gold band she still wore. "My husband died 6 months ago. Fever took him, along with our unborn child." Her voice caught. "His family blamed me, said I was cursed. When men started coming around making ... improper offers, I knew I had to leave. And you go where now?" "California." I have a sister there, or I hope I do. Haven't heard from her in 2 years? Ayana nodded sagely. Long journey for woman alone. Dangerous. Through the lodge's entrance, Kestrel could see Nolnish speaking with other men around a central fire. Even seated, he commanded attention. His deep voice carried authority, but she caught gentleness in his gestures when children ran near. He is good man, Ayana continued, but alone too long. Needs woman who sees past fear to the heart beneath. I'm not looking for another husband, Kestrel said quickly. I just need to reach California safely. Ayana's knowing smile said she wasn't fooled. Sometimes what we need and what we seek are different paths to same destination. A commotion outside interrupted their conversation. Nolnish appeared at the lodge entrance, his expression grim. Riders approach, he said. 6 men with torches. They seek someone. Kestrel's blood turned to ice. They followed me. The townsman from Willow Creek? At her nod, Nolnish's jaw tightened. They will not enter our camp uninvited. But if they discover you are here, I won't bring war to your people, Kestrel said, standing. I'll go with them. No. The word came out like a growl. You are under my protection now. You don't understand. They'll claim I stole money from the general store, or worse. They have the sheriff with them. Nolnish stepped fully into the lodge, his massive frame filling the space. Then perhaps it is time for different arrangement. His dark eyes met hers with startling intensity. You need home. I need wife. This solves both problems. Kestrel's breath caught in her throat. Outside, the approaching riders grew closer, their torches casting dancing shadows against the lodge walls. I can't be serious. Among my people, marriage offers protection, Nolnish said, his voice steady despite the gravity of his words. As my wife, you would be Comanche, no white. Law could touch you here, but we barely know each other. Kestrel's heart raced. You saved my life, yes. But marriage is often arranged between families for protection and alliance, Ayana interrupted gently. Love can grow where respect is planted. The sound of horses drew nearer. Through the lodge entrance, Kestrel could see torchlight flickering at the camp's edge. Voices called out in English, demanding she be turned over. They claim I seduced their precious sheriff's son, Kestrel whispered, shame burning her cheeks. That I'm a temptress who leads good men to ruin. The boy wouldn't take no for an answer, and when I fought him off, she touched her cheek where a fading bruise still showed. Nolnish's expression darkened like a thundercloud. He struck you. His father has the whole town believing I'm some kind of harlot. They want to make an example of me, Nolnish. A voice boomed across the camp. We know you have the Harper woman. Send her out, or we'll burn this whole nest of savages. The giant warrior's hands clenched into fists. Ayana fetched Chief Running Bear and the sacred pipe. Tell him we need a marriage ceremony now. Wait. Kestrel grabbed his arm, stunned by the corded muscle beneath her fingers. You would truly do this? Marry a stranger to protect her? His dark eyes softened. You are not strange to me, Kestrel Harper. I see in you the same fire that burns in wounded animals, fierce, beautiful, but ready to fight even when fighting. Means death. He paused. I have been alone for 32 winters. The spirits brought you to me in your hour of need. Perhaps it was their design all along. But what if you come to regret it? What if I'm truly cursed, as they say? A rare smile crossed his weathered features. Then we will be cursed together. Chief Running Bear appeared with remarkable swiftness, carrying an ornate pipe and speaking in rapid Comanche. Several tribal women entered bearing ceremonial clothing. Asks if you consent freely to this union. Nolnish translated as the chief's piercing gaze studied Kestrel's face. Outside, the white men grew more agitated. Sheriff Morrison's voice rose above the others. We'll give you 10 minutes, then we're coming in. Kestrel looked at Nolnish's steady face, then at Ayana's encouraging nod. She thought of her dead husband, of the child she'd lost, of the long road to California and her uncertain sister. I consent, she whispered. The ceremony passed in a blur of foreign words and sacred smoke. Nolnish's massive hands were surprisingly gentle as he placed a beaded necklace around her throat and spoke vows in his native tongue. When it came time for her to respond, he translated quietly. I promise to honor your strength and guard your heart as you have guarded mine, she repeated, her voice growing stronger with each word. Chief Running Bear pronounced them wed just as angry shouts erupted at the camp's perimeter. Now what? Kestrel asked, suddenly very aware that she had just married this magnificent, terrifying stranger. Nalnish's smile held dangerous promise. Now, I introduce my wife to her wedding guests. Nalnish emerged from the lodge with Kestrel at his side, and the effect on the assembled white men was immediate. Even Sheriff Morrison, a man who'd never backed down from a fight, took an involuntary step backward when the Comanche giant's full height became apparent in the torchlight. Gentlemen, Nalnish said, his English perfect and formal. You seek someone who no longer exists. Kestrel Harper died today. In her place stands Kestrel Nalnish, my wife and a daughter of the Comanche nation. Now see here, Morrison blustered, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. You can't just steal a white woman and call it marriage. I stole nothing. Nalnish's hand settled protectively on Kestrel's lower back. She came to me freely, seeking sanctuary from men who would abuse their authority. Kestrel stepped forward, drawing strength from her husband's presence. Sheriff Morrison, you know perfectly well why I left Willow Creek. Your son forced himself on me. When I defended myself, you chose to believe his lies rather than see the truth. Billy said you tried to seduce him. Morrison's face flushed. Red, a decent woman doesn't fight off a man's advances. A decent man doesn't force his attentions on an unwilling woman, Nalnish rumbled. And something in his tone made every white man present check their weapons nervously. Chief Running Bear spoke quietly to several warriors who melted into the shadows around the camp's perimeter. The message was clear. They were surrounded and outnumbered. This ain't over, Morrison threatened, but he was already backing toward his horse. You can't hide behind these savages forever. I am not hiding, Kestrel said, her voice ringing. Clear across the camp, I am home. The words surprised her with their truth. As the white men rode away with threats and curses, she felt something she hadn't experienced since her first husband's death. Safety. It's not just physical protection, but the deeper peace of being truly seen and accepted. Do you mean that? Nalnish asked when the torches had disappeared into the darkness. Kestrel studied his face in the firelight, noting the vulnerability hidden beneath his stoic expression. This powerful warrior who could face down armed men was uncertain about a woman's feelings. I don't know yet, she answered honestly, but I want to find out. Over the following days, Kestrel discovered that life in the Comanche village held rhythms entirely different from white settlements. Women held respected positions, their voices heard in council. Children learned by watching and doing rather than sitting in rigid classrooms. Most surprising of all, Nalnish treated her not as property, but as a partner. He showed her how to identify edible plants on the prairie, how to read weather signs and cloud formations, how to communicate with horses using subtle body language. In return, she shared skills from her former life reading and writing. Basic medical knowledge, ways to preserve food through harsh winters. Your people will think you've gone native, Ayana observed one evening as she taught Kestrel to work with beads and dyed porcupine quills. My people cast me out, Kestrel replied, surprising herself with the bitterness in her voice. At least here, my worth isn't measured by how well I keep silent and bear children. But you want children? The older woman's eyes held knowing kindness. Kestrel's hands stilled on the beadwork. I lost a baby with my first husband, the midwife said. She said, I might never carry another two-term. Ah, Ayana nodded. And this weighs on your heart when you look at Nalnish. He deserves sons, daughters. I may not be able to give him that. Did you tell him this before the ceremony? There wasn't time. There is always time for truth between husband and wife, Ayana said gently, especially difficult truths. That night, as Kestrel lay on soft buffalo robes in the lodge, she now shared with Nalnish. She listened to his steady breathing and wondered what would happen when he learned of her barrenness. Would he set her aside? Send her back to face Morrison's justice? The thought of losing this strange new peace terrified her more than any sheriff's threats ever could. 3 weeks into their marriage, Nalnish still hadn't claimed his husbandly rights, and Kestrel was beginning to wonder if her inability to bear children was somehow written across her forehead for all to see. He was unfailingly gentle, helping her learn the intricacies of Comanche life. But he maintained a careful physical distance that left her confused and, if she was honest, disappointed. At night, they lay on opposite sides of their lodge, an invisible wall between them, more impermeable than any physical barrier. The morning, everything changed. Began like any other. Kestrel was grinding corn with the other women when a hunting party returned with troubling news. Riders had been spotted near the eastern boundary knot, the angry men from Willow Creek, but cavalry soldiers in blue uniforms. "They come to count us," Chief Running Bear said grimly when the tribe gathered in council. "To see how many warriors we have. How many horses. They prepare for something." Nolnish's expression darkened. "The treaty promised us these lands until the next full moon cycle. Have they moved to break it already?" "Treaties are like morning mist to the bluecoats," spat an older warrior named Windwalker. "They disappear when the sun grows hot." Fear rippled through the camp. Kestrel had heard stories of what happened when the army decided a Comanche band was troublesome. Entire villages had been destroyed. Survivors marched to reservations hundreds of miles away. That evening, families huddled around cookfires. Speaking in hushed voices, Nolnish finally broke the careful distance he'd maintained. "If the soldiers come for us," he said quietly, staring into the flames, "you could go with them. Tell them you were forced into marriage, held against your will. They would protect you." Kestrel's hands stilled on the moccasin she was repairing. "Is that what you want, for me to leave? Want you to live?" His dark eyes met hers across the fire. "Even if it means living without me." The raw pain in his voice made her chest tighten. "Why haven't you touched me, Nolnish? Are you waiting for me to leave? Making it easier?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because when you discover what manner of man you truly married, you will run. And I find I cannot bear the thought of holding you close only to watch you flee." "What do you mean?" Nolnish stood abruptly, his massive frame blocking out the stars. "My father was not just Mexican. He was a soldier. A man who came to kill Comanche and instead fell in love with my mother. When his commanding officer discovered the relationship, he ordered my father to choose his duty or his heart." Kestrel held her breath. He chose duty. "Led a raid on our winter camp that killed 17 people, including my mother's brother and 2 cousins. She never forgave him, even when he deserted and tried to return to her. The tribe accepted me because I was her blood, but everyone knew what I was, the son of a betrayer." "That's not your shame to carry," Kestrel said fiercely. "You are not. Your father? Am I not?" He turned to face her, firelight casting harsh shadows across his features. "I married you without love, for protection and convenience. How is that different from what he did using someone for his own purposes?" Kestrel stood and moved to him, her heart breaking at the self-loathing in his voice. "Because you've saved my life. Because you've shown me nothing but kindness." Because she stopped, shocked by what she was about to say. "Because what?" "'Cause I'm falling in love with you," she whispered. "And I think you're falling in love with me too, which terrifies you." His breath caught, double quotes KSTR. "L. There's something you need to know," she said quickly, before courage could fail her. "Lost a baby with my first husband, and the midwife said I might never carry another child to term. If you want sons, if you need heirs." His massive hands cupped her face so gently she barely felt their weight. "Do you think so little of me? That I would cast aside the woman who brought light back into my world over something neither of us can control? But your people, my people, believe children come when the spirits deem it right. If we are blessed with sons and daughters, we will rejoice. If not, we will pour our love into the children of our heart's orphans, those who need guidance, the young ones who seek wisdom from their elders." Tears traced warm paths down Kestrel's cheeks. "I was so afraid you'd send me away." "Never." His forehead touched hers. "You are home to me, Kestrel Nolnish, the first home I've ever truly known." When he kissed her at last, under the vast Texas sky with war drums echoing in the distance, she understood that sometimes the greatest courage wasn't in facing external enemies, it was in opening your heart to love again, despite every reason to keep it safely closed. The cavalry arrived 3 days later with 50 soldiers, 2 wagons, and enough firepower to flatten the village. But instead of immediate violence, they came under a flag of truce. Questing parley with Chief Running Bear, Captain Marcus Thornfield was younger than Kestrel had expected, with intelligent gray eyes and the careful bearing of a man trying to balance duty with conscience. He studied the assembled Comanche warriors with professional assessment, his gaze lingering longest on Nalnish. "I'm told one of our citizens has been taken captive," Thornfield said, his voice carrying across. "The tense gathering, a woman named Kestrel Harper. No such woman exists in this village." Chief Running Bear replied through Nalnish's translation. Kestrel stepped forward before anyone could stop her. "Captain, I am Kestrel Nalnish, wife of this warrior and a daughter of the Comanche people. I came here freely and remain by choice." Thornfield's eyebrows rose. "Mrs. Harper, Sheriff Morrison claims you were kidnapped and forced into unnatural relations with these hostiles." "Sheriff Morrison is a liar, protecting his rapist son," Kestrel said bluntly, causing several soldiers to shift uncomfortably. "I sought refuge from men who would abuse me, and found sanctuary among people with more honor than those who claim to represent civilization. Understand, I must verify this claim," Thornfield said carefully. "If you've been coerced, Captain," Nalnish's deep voice cut through the tension, "perhaps we might speak privately, soldier to soldier." The 2 men withdrew to the edge of the camp, followed by Chief Running Bear and Sheriff Morrison, who had apparently ridden with the cavalry unit. Kestrel watched anxiously as animated discussion took place, unable to hear the words but reading volumes in body language. "What do you think they're saying?" she asked Ayanna. "Your husband is a wise man," the older woman replied. "He knows white law as well as Comanche custom. Trust him." After nearly an hour, the men returned. Captain Thornfield's expression was carefully neutral, but Sheriff Morrison's face was thunderous. After speaking with Mrs. Nalnish, Thornfield announced, "I find no evidence of coercion or unlawful detention. Furthermore, certain allegations against her character appear to have been significantly exaggerated." Morrison sputtered. "Captain, you can't seriously believe Sheriff Morrison." Thornfield's voice carried the authority of military command. "I suggest you return to Willow Creek and ensure your son understands that. His behavior toward women must improve substantially. Any further complaints of his conduct will be investigated thoroughly. But she's living among savages. It ain't natural. She's living among her husband's people," Thornfield corrected coolly. "Last I checked, a woman's place was determined by her marriage, not her birth. Unless you're suggesting the institution of marriage itself is no longer sacred." The sheriff's face cycled through several shades of red before he stormed back to his horse. As he and his cronies rode away in defeat, Captain Thornfield approached. "Nalnish again. I won't pretend this solves all your problems," he said quietly. "Okay. There are forces in Washington pushing for all tribes to be relocated to reservations. My commanding officer, he's not as reasonable as I am." "How long do we have?" Nalnish asked. 6 months, maybe 8, if you stay peaceful and avoid any incidents that could be used as justification." Thornfield glanced around the village, noting the children playing and women working. "I've seen reservations. These people deserve better." "Thank you for your honesty, Captain." Thornfield nodded, then looked at Kestrel. "Ma'am, if you ever change your mind, if you need help, I'm exactly where I belong," she said firmly. That night, as the village celebrated their temporary victory, Kestrel and Nalnish sat together outside their lodge watching the stars. The threat still loomed, but for now they had time to build something strong enough to withstand whatever storms lay ahead. "What happens when the soldiers return?" she asked. "We adapt. Survive. Find a way to protect our people." His arm tightened around her, "but we face it together. Always. Always." She turned in his embrace, marveling at how natural it felt to be held by this gentle giant who had changed her entire world. "Nalnish, yes, I love you. Not from gratitude or convenience, but because you're the most honorable man I've ever known. I wanted you to hear it when we weren't facing death or uncertainty." His smile was radiant in the firelight. "I love you." Fierce little hawk, who landed in my life when I had forgotten what hope looked like. When he kissed her this time, there was no desperation in it, no fear of Lawsonley the deep 6 months later. Kestrel stood on a ridge overlooking a hidden canyon where the remnants of their band had made a new home. The army had come as Captain Thornfield predicted, but Chief Running Bear had led his people into the wilderness rather than march to a reservation. It had been a harsh winter, but they had survived. More than survived, they had thrived in ways that surprised even the most adaptable among them. The canyon provided shelter from wind and discovery, sweet water from an underground spring, and enough game to feed everyone. Kestrel placed a protective hand over her rounded belly. Still, amazed by the miracle growing within her, the pregnancy had come as a shock to everyone, but Ayanna had merely smiled knowingly and prepared herbal teas to ease the morning sickness. The spirits give gifts when hearts are ready to receive them, the older woman had said. You're thinking. Too hard again, Nalnish said, approaching from behind to wrap his arms around her. His hands settled naturally over hers on her stomach, and she leaned back against his solid warmth. Just counting blessings, she replied. When I left Willow Creek, I thought my life was over. I never imagined finding this. A baby. A future. She turned in his arms to study his face. Are you happy? Truly happy? I have a wife who argues with me when I'm wrong, challenges me when I'm stubborn, and loves me despite every reason not to.
Ow.
His smile was tender.
I have a child.
Coming, who will know both worlds, Comanche and White, and perhaps help bridge them? I have a people who have chosen freedom over safety. He paused. Yes, Kestrel, I am happy. A shout from below drew their attention. Captain Thornfield was riding into their canyon alone and under a white flag. Kestrel's heart clenched had he come to take them back by force. But when they reached the camp, Thornfield was laughing with Chief Running Bear, sharing coffee and what appeared to be good news. The war is over, he explained when they joined the gathering. The new administration in Washington has different priorities than chasing peaceful Indians through desert canyons. You're to be left alone, with the understanding that you'll cause no trouble for settlers or supply trains. And in return, Nolnish asked suspiciously, you help me keep the peace when other bands cause problems. Your word carries weight with the young warriors who might otherwise choose the warpath. It was more than they had dared hope. For official recognition of their right to exist as they chose, without the restrictions of reservation life. That evening, as the village celebrated with drums and dancing, Captain Thornfield pulled Kestrel aside for a private conversation. I have news from California, he said. Your sister. She's alive and well, married to a rancher outside Sacramento. She's been looking for you. Kestrel felt tears prick her eyes. How did you? I made inquiries. Thought you should know you have options, should you ever want to reconnect with that part of your life. She looked across the firelight to where Nalnish was telling stories to a group of children, his deep voice painting pictures of brave warriors and clever coyotes. Her heart swelled with love and certainty. Thank you, Captain, but my family is here now. I thought you'd say that, he smiled. Your husband is a good man. Your people are fortunate to have found each other. Yes, Kestrel agreed, watching. As Nolnish noticed her watching and sent her that slow smile that never failed to make her pulse quicken. 3 months later, as spring painted the canyon walls with wildflowers, Kestrel gave birth to a daughter with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. They named her Ayanna in honor of the woman who had first welcomed a frightened widow into the warmth of family. She will be a bridge between worlds, Nolnish said, as he cradled his daughter with hands gentle enough to hold butterfly wings, strong enough to stand in both, wise enough to choose her own path. Kestrel watched her husband with their child and knew that sometimes the greatest adventures began not with running away from something, but with running toward the life you were meant to live in when that life looked nothing like what you had planned. You need a home, and I need a wife, she murmured, remembering his words from that first desperate night. What did you say? She smiled, reaching up to trace the strong line of his jaw. I was just thinking about how wrong we both were. How so? We didn't need those things at all, she said softly. We needed each other. Everything else was just details. As the sun set over their hidden canyon, painting the sky in shades of promise, Kestrel Nolnish held her husband and daughter close and knew she had finally found her way home.